Hi everybody, it's Sarah here from Foster Wiki, and I'm delighted to bring you the third in our series in conversation with Foster Wiki. And this week I'm really delighted to bring you Tracy Hughes, who is a foster carer like many of you, but has a very, very varied background, which I'll tell you about in a minute. I think that the things we're going to be talking about today you will really, really relate with, or many of you will. They're not things that are said out loud very often, but frankly, we need to start speaking about these things in order to raise standards, not just for foster carers, but for the children we care for as well. So Tracy contacted me a couple of weeks ago on Foster Wiki, and I absolutely loved what she had to say and the way she had to say it as well. And I loved her ideas around how we need to find solutions, how we need to improve the system. And I think a lot of you are going to relate to what she has to say. So we'll be speaking about a couple of things today. One of them is what Tracy calls professional snobbery. And I think a lot of us can relate to that as well. I've got my notes, by the way, if I look like I'm looking down. Otherwise, you know me, I'll go off script. So this professional snobbery that Tracy speaks about is when professionals' interpretations and opinions are seen as truthful, factual, and a balanced life, a balance of what's going on in the child's life. And it often dismisses, or certainly doesn't acknowledge, what the carer has to say, who are in fact the people who live with these children 24/7 and have a real balanced view. So Tracy believes that's wrong, but she also believes it's dangerous, and she's going to talk to us today about what she feels about it and maybe some solutions. She also encapsulates something else that we suffer a lot from, and she describes it as Chinese whispers. And again, this goes back to the opinions of the other professionals in the teams around us, that these opinions and these interpretations, again, some about us, become fact, and very often end up on our records. In actual fact, you can see Foster Wiki's page on that called Correcting Incorrect and False Information. So it's obviously a thing. We've written a page about it. It does happen. We're also going to touch on the them and us culture, which pervades foster care, between foster carers and social workers and the teams around the child. Very, very much a them and us. And again, we feel that that's very damaging, not just to the sector or the foster carers, but the children themselves as well. So just a little bit about Tracy. She's got a 25-year background working with adolescents in care. She includes 24-hour support with adolescents with complex and challenging behaviours. It includes being a senior residential support worker in sexual abuse, working for the council as a personal assistant, that's a leaving care advisor. And then for 8 years as a foster carer, specialising in complex adolescents. I'm sure you'll agree with me that this is a fantastic backdrop to be able to have an opinion on these things. So without any further ado, we'll go over to Tracy. And hi, Tracy, lovely to have you. Thanks for coming.
Nice to be here.
Lovely. And I'd like to kick off really to say that, first of all, it's great to have you on the show. And I'm very glad you got in touch with us. I know you feel passionate about speaking out as well, which more and more carers are starting to do now. Can you tell us more about your views on, what you described to me as this professional snobbery?
Professional snobbery, I don't know if it's a term that already exists or it's a term I made up. But how I'm using it is from my experience, which I have had as a foster carer and social workers and managers and other professionals coming to my house, is that I've been made to feel I'm on the peripheral of a meeting, and every now and again I'm given 5 minutes to have something to say. Yeah. And then once that's said, I'm expected then not to say anymore because the serious business has to go on. Now, this I find I call professional snobbery. I have a wealth of experience, as do a lot of foster carers, because foster carers go into this role with the aim of improving children's lives.
Yeah, absolutely they do.
And
yeah.
They go in they want to advocate on behalf of the youngster. They also want to look out for what is within their best interest. And what they are finding now is what I am finding now, it's as to come, it's my point of view, is that I have come across many a worker who has come out to me, and I've had an issue or a problem with a youngster which I need to talk over. And the background of that problem doesn't seem to matter because the information is coming from myself.
Yeah, yeah.
So they would they would give me advice according to what they believe they should say. Let me try and explain this a little bit better.
I think also what you're saying there, for my mind as well, is that you're getting the advice and help of somebody who actually hasn't perhaps done the job. And there's this kind of textbook almost response, isn't there, to that each question?
There's a narrative, yeah, there's a narrative which is far too often being used, and you hear all the same keywords and trigger words and trigger sentences over and over again from different professionals. You could have a social services is in a mess, not just in the county, not just in the local authority, nationally.
Absolutely.
The fostering service is in a mess. There's a massive shortage of foster carers, and they're struggling to keep social workers. Now, it's okay saying, okay, we can look at this, and what we need is to employ more social workers because the caseload is very high, they're very stressed. And we need to then look at that, but they need to look at why foster carers are leaving and why social workers are leaving. Now, because they're in a mess, because finances have been used wrongly, they're having to resort to employ a lot of newly qualified or inexperienced workers. Now, when you employ newly qualified social workers, you must understand a lot of these newly qualified social workers are young. They are young. Sometimes they could be, 22, 23. Yeah. They're not getting the time to shadow. They're not getting the time to learn all the little tricks of the trade, the people skills, the listening, and they feel compelled to deliver a service of what they think somebody who has been doing the job for 10 years. So they come in a little bit, knowledgeable of let me say know it all, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, because I think they're put in a really, really bad situation.
Yeah, I agree.
They're not allowed to shadow. I think it's quite disgraceful. I think the local authority is quite neglectful of its duty to look after the newly qualified. Yeah. But all said and done, put that to one side. So you have an experienced foster carer like myself. I have a newly qualified social worker come out who would like to support me. If I ask her, what support do you think you can offer me? Yeah. Then it would be very limited, if nil.
Yes. Yeah.
The story is, and it is a story, is we are offering you support.
Yes, yes.
There is no support there.
No, no.
There is no support there. There's a look of support. But
do you think supervision's ever really been support, or do you think it's a more, let's come and check out that you're doing the right thing? I mean, I know here from a lot of carers that them and us culture pervades. They're very, very measured in supervision. They don't feel that it's kind of supervision, as you say, to truly support them in their work. And the other thing is, Tracy, they're far too afraid to admit that anything's wrong, or maybe they might have a mental health issue or anything like that. That them and us culture is really strong in terms of the fear of actually admitting to anything going wrong. I mean, is that something you found?
I found it massively I don't find supervision supportive. I find supervision just a recording exercise, and it's so that the box can be ticked that you've had your supervision and you've had your support. It's a tick box. It's not effective. For some people, it might be effective if you're one of the fraudulents. We're not talking about everybody here who's a social worker. We're talking about specific growing culture of, let's pretend, which is going on. So that the support in supervision, I don't feel it is supportive at all. Because I think it is a recording attitude. But the dangers of having newly qualified workers or inexperienced.
'Workers'
workers are quite massive. for a simple reason. If you have let's say, I'm going to take it back to basics, I could be totally wrong or it could be totally right or anything in between. If you have people who go into social work want to protect children, they want to look after children, right? Now, when they go into their social work role, it's very different from the picture they have in their head. If they're not being given the time to shadow, they're already started on the wrong foot. And they're going to go down a lane which is not the right lane. And many newly qualified social workers leave because of this, because they're out of depth, or they feel that it's too risky for them to stay in that particular authority. So they come, those that do, some will come out, and they will believe, right, that if they want to come out and see their youngster. What they don't understand just yet, because they're too young or too inexperienced, is that youngster you're talking to will not connect with you for a while, for quite a while, for a simple reason. They've had 101 social workers, right? If you can talk the youngster into meeting with a social worker, then that's one thing, you have to do that. That youngster knows that social worker has an agenda. They'll know, they'll play through the script. I'll be your best friend. I'll ask you questions. We'll do a few jokes, we'll laugh, and then boom, they'll go straight into the script, and the youngster's waiting for it. They're waiting for the script. So they know there's an agenda when when a social worker comes out. What they do learn, as they get, a little bit older and you go into adolescent years, it's quite normal for adolescents to filter through different groups to find out who can be useful for them. It's part of their development as for when they move on and prepare for when they're older. That social worker can be useful to them. That's what they learn. Useful. How do they? Many times the social worker is useful because they learn that if their carer, and I'm making this up, this is not real, doesn't give them the extra half hour on the PlayStation, they get a little bit miffed with the carer and they think, right, I'm going to pay you back. They'll sow a seed of an allegation with the newly qualified social worker who has been trying to connect with these for maybe on 2-3 occasions. We'll say 2 or 3 occasions because when it's written down, it will say, I've been their worker for 3 months. You've seen them 2 or 3 occasions. We have to talk literally as it is rather than create to their story. So they will see them 2 or 3, and then when they divulge possible little nugget of a complaint or an allegation, they hook right into it.
Well, and also I think that there is sort of common sense in that either. They'll I think what they've learned at college or maybe from their peers or whatever, there is that sense of, there's older social workers will use some common sense. And I think what I need to say really importantly here as well to everybody that's watching, Tracy and myself and all of our colleagues, there's nothing more important to us than child protection. So we're not talking here about awful things that have happened. The actual most allegations are unsubstantiated or unfounded. And I think it's something like 85%. There are a very small proportion of allegations that are based on something. And so many, unfortunately, are exactly what you're describing, Tracy. I think you went through something yourself, did you? I mean, all carers at some stage, look round young children as long as we have, will be subjected to this. And I think that, like you say, you're taking a nugget and it gets out of proportion. The Chinese whispers, isn't it?
It is. Well, they take the little nugget, they hook in, and they now feel they're building a relationship with the child. It's not a relationship with the child. That little bit of information will go forward. Now, when you're put in a position, I think when a lot of people without experience are put in a position where they have to prove themselves, and as a newly qualified, you have to prove yourself. And if you then have this second level of going to a manager who really shouldn't be in a managerial role, but because the finances are so tight, people are being forced to take on roles which they're not prepared for. And if you have those 2 levels, you as a carer are in a very, very dangerous situation, because what will then happen is they will look then through your record for further information which will substantiate the claim the youngster has made. Now that youngster, why all this investigation is going on and you're none the wiser, that's okay. Then you find out an investigation is going on straight away.
Yeah.
You as a carer become cautious. The youngster then changes how their relationship is with you. They don't know if they're in trouble. They don't know if they're going to stay. They don't know what, what's going to happen next. And one thing could happen is they'll stick to it because they're too far in and don't want to look like they're backing out. Or two, they'll say, I totally lied, it was because I didn't get my own way. So now these are the ones that stick to it. So this now starts, this youngster could have been in placement 6 years and it could have been perfect. Now the discord starts. The foster carer, as further investigations go on, will quite likely bear with it because they know that's what you have to do when there's a complaint or an allegation. Then further information will come forward. It will be blown out of context and it'll be added to this case. And it'll be totally wrong. That youngster then is now in a precarious position in his placement. You have now started the vicious circle of a placement breakdown.
Yes, absolutely.
Which didn't need to happen.
Been there myself. I think anyone watching needs to understand that this is not unusual. We aren't trying to, or some might be watching saying, oh, well, maybe something did happen. No, this is really not unusual. And you're absolutely right. And the Chinese whispers thing, I love the way you've coined that, because what often happens with an allegation, if it's not really robust enough or there's not enough there, instead of backpedaling and saying, okay, this doesn't need to go to panel, it's not even a standards of care, I don't think it even happened, this didn't even happen. It doesn't happen like that, does it? What happens is they find stuff. This is what we always talk about foster carers with their records and being so careful with their recording and reporting and finding out what is on the records. They suddenly dig up things. I had no idea. You've had all these glowing reports and reviews and yearly reviews, and then suddenly there's all this stuff that appears from nowhere.
They want to know what's going on in your life that could have contributed to maybe you being a little bit snappy or short-tempered. There could be nothing going on in your life, or there could be everything going on in your life, but it doesn't mean to say that will have anything to do with this situation. But all of a sudden it's attached to it because they're now building a case of this allegation which needn't have happened. And as I say previously, I had one open up on myself, and it was looked into, and it went on for about 10 days without my knowing, until another foster youngster I had asked me, she'd been met with her social worker, and she said she asked her a really strange question about her food. And I asked her what what was they spoke about. And she said, oh, it was totally weird. And she mentioned she was wanting to know what I had to eat at different nights each week. I thought, oh, okay. So then I had to get in touch with my support worker. Can you tell me what this is about? Because working in the system, I know how it goes.
Yes.
And it appeared that one of the youngsters I had, because she was only with me for a very short time respite, but she enjoyed being there, and she enjoyed foster care. And her mum made a complaint that all she had was salad for her tea. That was the complaint looked into for 10 days, where they went into my records, they were interviewing other foster youngsters, and as they spoke to me, what they would have found out is every time I cook a meal, I put salad there, because you and I know we get foster youngsters who come to the house and not used to eating fruits and vegetables.
Oh yes, I know. We've just done a page on foster children and food. In fact, it's a brand new one because it's such a big issue. And getting them to eat anything, green. So basically, you're putting a salad on as well as a varied menu all week.
Sensitize them.
All the money that must have cost. The money that
all
must have cost.
All those meetings, which was
a couple of weeks.
That's it. The timing of people getting together and having those meetings, the records which would have been attached to my file, which is now starting, there's now a little bit of a seed there.
Yeah.
Get fed salad. But there was also another one I experienced myself where I was meant to feel that I was being inconsiderate of the child. And the reason why that come about is because I was insisting the social worker done her job. So there was a total reversal of intentions towards the
again,
other.
so it was projected back onto you, basically.
It was projected back onto me, yes.
Mm.
So I think professional snobbery is really dangerous, because this information, any social worker comes to your house and then takes back, you are automatically, you are assumed guilty till proven innocent, not the other way around where an allegation is had. So the first protocol is not to talk to you to find out what's happened. Has there been any upset, you know, in the house in the last week? Have you had any disagreements with the youngster? Could there be any reason for this? That should be the first protocol, should to talk to the foster carer. And if they felt that there was a concern, then you let them know that there is a concern and we are looking into it. And these are the steps of how we do it. Not to be done behind your back.
No.
Not to be done in secrecy. No. But there's the assumption that the interpretation of what is being reported back is correct. It's as though foster carers are unable to, let me try and think of the right word. No, it's not coming to me, but it's as though the social workers are the only people equipped being able to take in lots of information and understand it, and what spouts out the other side is correct.
Yeah. And that we find that so much, don't we? And that's why we've even written pages up on Foster Wiki, developed by, you know, a lot of foster carers who've had we've got lots on data, reporting, recording, because this isn't an unusual situation. It's not heard of because people don't speak about it, and most carers are too afraid to speak out for exactly the reasons you're talking about. I'd like to pick up on something you said there. You said they're guilty until proven innocent. I would like to claim that you are never proven innocent, because it's always on your record, and they either do it substantiated or unsubstantiated or unfounded. They never say this didn't happen. They kind of suggest that, oh, we couldn't prove it. So it always stays on your record. And not only that, whilst it stays on your record, also, which I also find terribly challenging, is that, and I've supported a lot of people through panel, when it's become blatantly obvious that it really even didn't happen at all, or has happened like how you would say, they're always put on more training, and they're asked to reflect on what happened and how they do it differently. And woe betide any carer who sits there and says, well, it didn't happen. Oh, you're not really reflecting on your practice there. So, you know, it really is. And in actual fact, this week, the Fostering Network have just done an article on allegations and that, you know, we need to change the system sort of thing. I mean, you know, I love the Fostering Network for so many things, and their heart's in the right place, but I would say they're a tad late to that party. You know, we've known for a very, very long time that the allegation system is not fit for purpose. It just isn't, and it's not independent. And it does allow hugely for this professional snobbery, as you call it, where I would say that being a foster carer is very reductive, isn't it? It doesn't matter what you've done before, who you are, how much experience you've got at anything, even if it's parenting. You come in to be a foster carer and you are reduced, very reduced immediately to just a foster carer. I want to ask you a question, actually. You say about these new social workers. Do you think that it's down to their education and training and their degrees and things, that they're not spoken to by foster carers? They don't understand our role. Do you think they come in thinking we're just glorified babysitters?
I think that the role of a foster carer, I think, is kept down. Because if you keep the role down, then people can't have a say, can they? Because you're not clever enough to have a say. What you are is someone with the ability to care and a spare room. And that's what you're looked upon, the ability to care and a spare room.
Yeah.
It's like if you get a whisk, then that whisk can whisk. this is your limit. And I think the education system, I don't like the education system in the way that you have to have a degree, be it a social work degree or any other degree, to be worthwhile. I think there's a snobbery to that. There's many people without a degree who have changed the planet.
Yes.
So I think there's a snobbery to that. When you get, the other thing I dislike about the system there is, if you look at a social worker role, you know, if you go into the job site, look for a social worker role, look at the list of what you're expected to do as a social worker. You go through that role and you interpret it, and you will find that as a foster carer, you do most of that list.
Yes.
You do most of that list.
Well, absolutely, we do most of that. The trouble is, as well, Tracy, at the moment, I do believe that there is professional snobbery in the degrees. I do think we need a better and a consistent education for carers, but maybe we can speak about that another day, because I think that's really important. But basically, when you know, come in as a foster carer, we never expected that foster care would be in such crisis that we will be taking on every role. When they talk about support, they spoke about it in Parliament a few weeks back. They had actually it was last week, a debate on the fostering retention and recruitment problem. I mean, I think it was a missed opportunity. I think the time could have been used better. I think that not a lot was said, but they talk about this support and training. That's all they talk about. Do you know what they mean by support? Is a cup of tea or some more peer support, or mentors, or support groups, or they talk about you know, let's play bingo with the social workers. It's not about that support. Support is what you're talking about. It's about having that team around you all doing their jobs, as it were, isn't it?
It is massively about that. And the word support is always kind of, it's a little bit vague, isn't it? You know, you go to review meetings and you talk to other professionals and they go, you know, if there's an issue, we can offer you support. No. I don't want the word support. You list to me what that support is. You tell me what that support is. Do I get that support right away, or do I have to wait for you to make several referrals or talk to your manager, and then 6 weeks down the line I get an update on that support? Support, the word support is not okay.
Broken down, isn't it?
But by then it's broken down. It's not okay for people to say, we're going to offer you support. That needs to be changed. It needs to be listed what the support is that you're going to offer.
Yeah.
Now that doing the, as you say, the degree, and as you asked before, I do feel it's a little old art, to be honest, because when people are studying social care, this is where foster carers are not recognising their own worth at all. When people are studying social care, that data comes from somewhere. Now that data will come from the past of children in care. A lot of it will come from records from foster carers. They will all go on to formulate this education plan to prepare social workers for the future. Right now, we have an awful lot of youngsters that foster carers have been crying out are disconnected. The mental health issues they have gone off the scale. Their social skills are lacking terribly because society, sadly, has become more disconnected. Now, a lot of the study around this is not actually filtered into the social work degree.
Right.
Yeah. So it's being, you know, we're kind of working 10 years behind, but foster carers doing the job are working now on those issues and trying to sort those issues now. And
that's a great point. That's a really great point, actually. Yeah.
They're being boo-hooed because no, this is not what's been taught about or discussed in theory or written about in books. This is now, and we're at the forefront of having the data for the care for children for the future, and we're not being listened to. We're not being listened to. The whole social care network kind of oppresses foster carers. They stop them from speaking out. If you make a complaint, you can go to 1, 2, but you will find that your complaint will go round in a circle, and you'll be quite limited as to where that will go. It won't be independent. And making a complaint is giving you the illusion that you have the right to complain. You do have the right to complain, right? But if you think they're going to be on your side to push forward the change which is needed because you've made that complaint, that is a mistake.
Yeah, it is. And also we find that, you know, always what we find is they investigate themselves, and that's never going to end well, is it, for the carer? And also, unfortunately, complaints are another huge trigger for allegations. And, you know, and carers know that. So we perpetuate not bad practice, but we perpetuate the practice that isn't effective, basically, don't we? And isn't working. We perpetuate it by, I think you're right, they keep foster carers exactly where they want them and need them, financially, as scapegoats, as maybe, you know, I'm not saying definitely in everybody, but, you know, there's a general feeling amongst carers that they can't speak out, and they do live in a bit of a climate of fear. You'll find it hugely so with foster carers. What do you think, what, you know, in your mind, what sort of solutions do you think are out there?
I think, to do with professional snobbery, I think that's a nice, you know, that's a worldwide solution. People value on people according to what degree they hold. But I think one of the solutions, if you need to, if we're going to stay in social care and use that as the model for the future of foster care, which I think is the wrong model, because it's totally been hijacked by offensive language, by manipulation, and by emotional manipulation. You know, if a foster carer signs up, far too often they're getting youngsters they're not prepared for, or who doesn't fit in their family structure, and they're made to feel it's because they don't care if they don't understand their past.
And that's because it's bums on beds, isn't it? We're basically foster carers work as an emergency service these days, not as there's no matching. You know, they talk about the great word matching. Let's talk matching.
Yeah.
Nobody can match at the moment because of the tremendous shortage of foster carers. And every carer I speak is either on their last child or thinking of leaving. They are so disillusioned. But how do we break this cycle?
I think one of the things is, for me, I would want to be treated as an equal. I think if you have a youngster who stays with you, you're the one who writes the recordings on them. You're the one who observes them day to day. You're the one who knows them. It's not as we mentioned, you come out 60 minutes every 6 weeks, and that 60 minutes of that little meeting will say and have a lot more weight than your 6 years of recordings on the future of this youngster.
Yeah,
so the future of this youngster is put in the hands of people who don't know him. That's put in the hands of the people who don't know him. So being seen as an equal is actually recognising. There's another thing I would like to note about foster carers, because they do undervalue themselves, because that's what the system supports, is to keep you undervalued. Because if they value you, then it would mean they would have to acknowledge you as an equal. So,
yes.
So you need to be undervalued. Is that when you sign up to be a foster carer, and everybody who's, you know, thinking about foster carer has to remember this: unless this changes, foster carers are not good. People are not going to be signing up to be a carer. Is when you apply to be a foster carer, you have to understand right now, at that moment you apply, you have stopped learning for any future positions or employment you want to go in. You've got nothing, right? A social worker will go into a role after 5 or 6 years. They will have that experience, a little bit more experience. When they go on to another job, the chances are the pay will go up, the position will go up, and it will increase, because that's what happens.
Yeah.
You could have 5, 6 years, you could have 10 years, you could have 20 years of being everything to this child, being the teacher, the carer, the therapist, the counsellor, the family liaison.
It's very true, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. You could have 20 years of that, but when you decide, okay, I'd like to move away from fostering and look at another employment, what are you?
Well, it's funny.
You are a non-skilled.
I know. I spoke to a carer last week who has exactly 20 years experience, and absolutely just like you and I as well, 20 years. She's phenomenal carer, this lady, up in the East Midlands, and I've known her for many, many years, and she finally said to me, which is surprising because I've never met anyone more resilient, and she does speak out, so she's forever in trouble, if you like. She said, it's absolutely, I can't do it anymore. I just can't do it anymore. So she inquired at a residential home, applied for a job, working with complex adolescents, and they said they obviously really wanted her. And she went with a file this thick of all her training and her certificates. And do you know what they said to her? I'm afraid we're going to have to start you on the minimum wage because you've got no childcare qualifications.
Yeah, and that's it. And
that's a shock.
That's disgraceful, isn't it? So you have two people doing the same job. One will be getting 35 to 50, 60 pound an hour and going up, and one will have to start from the minimum wage. The only difference is your title and how the system views you. You are a foster carer and one is a social worker, and the system views you as a stay-at-home person with a spare room, and it keeps you in that position. 15, 20 years later, any hope of you having aspirations to get any position which is going to be worthwhile financial wise will have gone. So until they alter that and do something which allows foster carers to get a qualification which they can take on for the future, you are going to struggle to keep carers. Because there's a lot of single carers now.
Also, I mean, watch this space as well, because Foster Wiki, just a little dip my toe in the water with it because it's all under wraps at the moment, but we are doing something about this at the moment and trying to work with a lot of people and get a group together too. So maybe I'll talk to you about this after the show, because I think this is terribly important. I think also what you said, I think we'll finish there because you could go on all day, couldn't you? Literally all day. I know you and I had right chats and everything, but otherwise these shows would be, you'd have to start in the morning. You'd be finished by tea time. But I think that I think what you also said is really important, and I saw another something about this. It's actually from a care experience young person. This talk about we want to be seen as professionals, and I know a lot of organisations like the Fostering Network use this sort of term. They want to be seen as professionals. It doesn't really mean much, to be honest. I think that you hit the nail on the head there, which was we want to be seen as equals. We want to be recognised for the actual skilled qualified practitioners we are. So, oh God, what a good conversation. It's given me a lot of food for thought, Tracy. And I know you're going to be a popular hit on this show. So we've already decided, haven't we? We're going to do a couple more. So thank you very, very much. We always end our show with 3 quick fire questions. But before I do, can I just say to everybody out there, please hit the subscribe button, because it really does make a difference. And this is your voice. So if any of you out there want to be on this show and have things to say and are foster carers, please get in touch with us. You might even be a social worker or somebody else. Anybody in the industry who wants to come on the air and sort of, speak out and talk about the issues, get in touch at info@fosterwiki.com. So hit the subscribe button, and massive thank you to Tracy, and we'll finish on our 3 quick fire questions. So number 1, would you recommend fostering to a friend?
No.
Okay. It's really hard, isn't it? Because you can.
It is, because I want to give a great big spiel as to why I wouldn't do that, but I'm trying to keep it short.
Number 2, what do you think is the single most important thing that would improve things?
It is actually being.
You got one line. One line.
The work we do to be acknowledged.
Yeah, perfect, absolutely perfect. And 3, why do you foster?
Well, I'm taking a break from fostering at the moment, but because I'm disillusioned with the system. But I fostered and I fostered complex teenagers because I always felt they got a raw deal and were misunderstood. And I wanted I would understand them and give them a chance to, to make that transition into adulthood and become a part of society instead of on the outside. That was my my reason for fostering, but the current changes within the social system does not allow you to do that.
No. Thank you very much. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and I'm sure you'll want to thank Tracy as well. And we will see you in show number 4 very shortly. Okay, bye.